When you look at Venezuela on a map, what do you see? For most of the world, this nation is defined by a single, tragic contradiction. Massive potential paralyzed by massive failure. We know the headlines. We know it holds the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Canada, more than Iran. We know that for the last decade, it has been locked in a bitter, strangling standoff with the United States. A conflict that has starved its economy and sent millions of its people fleeing across borders. The common story is simple. The US wants the oil. Venezuela said no, and chaos ensued. But if you think this story is just about the price of a barrel of crude, you are only seeing half the picture. While the world watches the oil tankers idling in the Caribbean, a quieter, perhaps more strategic game is being played in the shadows of the Guiana Shield. It is a game involving rare earth minerals, gold, and a resource that is quietly becoming the backbone of the 21st century technology revolution: silver. Why is the United States, a country that is now the world's largest oil producer itself, still so obsessed with Venezuela? Is it really just about energy security? Or is it about preventing a rival superpower from turning the Western Hemisphere into a fortress of strategic resources? Today, we are going deep. We are peeling back the layers of history, geology, and 4D geopolitical chess to uncover the real reason the US cannot take its eyes off Venezuela. From the heavy crude of the Orinoco Belt to the unmapped silver veins of the Andes, this is the story of the trillion-dollar prize. To understand the divorce, we have to understand the marriage. For most of the 20th century, Venezuela wasn't just a US neighbor. It was the engine room of the American dream. During World War II and the Cold War, it was Venezuelan oil that fueled US fleets, factories, and suburbs. The relationship was symbiotic, profitable, and deep. American companies like Exxon, Chevron, and Mobil didn't just buy the oil, they built the industry. They brought the technology to extract the thick, heavy crude from the Venezuelan ground, and in return, Venezuela spent the profits on modernizing its cities. Caracas was once known as the Paris of South America. It had the Concorde flying in from France, the highest per capita income in the region, and a skyline that rivaled Miami. But there is a technical detail here that is crucial to the story, one that most news reports miss. Venezuela's oil isn't like Saudi oil. It is heavy, sour crude. It is thick, sludgy, and full of sulfur. To turn that sludge into gasoline requires very specific, very expensive refineries. The United States spent decades and billions of dollars building refineries in the Gulf Coast, Texas, and Louisiana, specifically engineered to process this exact type of Venezuelan oil. We essentially built a massive industrial digestive system that can only eat one type of food. This geological reality created a bond that went beyond politics. The US needed Venezuelan heavy crude to keep its refineries profitable, and Venezuela needed the US cash to keep its lights on. It seemed like a perfect marriage. The US protected Venezuela under the umbrella of the Monroe Doctrine, the 200-year-old policy that declares Latin America as Washington's backyard, off limits to foreign powers. In exchange, Venezuela kept the taps open. But geology is no match for ideology. Enter Hugo Chavez in 1999. His Bolivarian revolution changed the calculus overnight. Chavez didn't view oil as a commercial commodity. He viewed it as a geopolitical weapon. He famously declared that the imperialist days were over. He began to dismantle the infrastructure of US influence. He kicked out ambassadors. He nationalized multi-billion-dollar projects owned by US giants like ConocoPhillips and ExxonMobil. He took the profits that used to go to reinvestment and maintenance and diverted them to massive social programs. Washington watched with growing alarm. But the breaking point wasn't just the rhetoric or the stolen assets. It was who Chavez invited to the party. By opening the door to Russia and China, Venezuela violated the unspoken rule of the Western Hemisphere. Chavez invited Chinese banks to finance his government. He invited Russian military advisors to service his jets. Suddenly, the US faced the prospect of a hostile, resource-rich state, allied with its greatest global rivals, sitting just a 3-hour flight from Miami. As the Venezuelan economy began to crumble under mismanagement, corruption, and lower oil prices, the US saw an opportunity, or perhaps a necessity: sanctions. Starting under the Obama administration and ramping up aggressively under Trump, the US applied maximum pressure. The goal was to starve the regime of cash, force a collapse, and restore a friendly government. They sanctioned PDVSA, the state oil company. They froze bank accounts. They made it illegal for US companies to buy Venezuelan oil. But in geopolitics, when you create a vacuum, someone else fills it. Cut off from the US dollar, Venezuela didn't collapse. It pivoted. It turned deeper into the arms of China. China loaned Venezuela over $60 billion to be repaid in oil. Russia's Rosneft took ownership stakes in Venezuelan fields. This brings us to the modern nightmare for US strategists. It's no longer just about wanting the oil, it's about denial. The US strategic imperative became, if we can't have access to this energy security, we must ensure our rivals don't control it either. But while everyone was fighting over the black gold, prospectors and geologists began looking at what else was in the ground. This is the part of the story you rarely hear about. While oil gets the headlines, Venezuela sits on a geological formation known as the Guiana Shield. It is one of the oldest and most mineral-rich landmasses on Earth. In 2016, desperate for cash as oil production tanked, the Venezuelan government opened up a massive area known as the Arco Minero del Orinoco, the mining arc. It's an area larger than Portugal, dedicated to mining. We know about the gold. Illicit gold mining has become a lifeline for the Maduro government, often involving criminal gangs and causing massive environmental damage. But geologists and mining reports point to something else: massive, largely untapped potential for strategic minerals, including coltan, bauxite, and silver. Why does silver matter? In the 20th century, silver was for jewelry and silverware. In the 21st century, silver is a strategic industrial metal. It is the most conductive element on Earth. Think about the green energy transition. Every solar panel requires silver paste. Every electric vehicle requires silver for its contacts and battery management systems. As the world races toward net zero, the demand for silver is skyrocketing. Current global mines in Mexico, Peru, and China are struggling to keep up with this exploding demand. Venezuela's mineral maps are often guarded as state secrets, but historical data and geological surveys of the Andean regions and the Guiana Shield indicate the presence of significant polymetallic deposits, ores that contain lead, zinc, and silver mixed together. Historically, Venezuela never bothered to mine these aggressively. Why dig for silver pennies when you can stick a straw in the ground and suck up liquid gold? The oil wealth made them lazy about other resources. Here is the quiet fear in Washington. China currently dominates the global supply chain for rare earth minerals and green energy components. If China, through its debt-trap diplomacy, gains exclusive rights to develop Venezuela's virgin mining territories, they wouldn't just control the oil. They could potentially lock up a new, massive source of silver and strategic metals right in America's backyard. This transforms Venezuela from just an energy station into a critical supply chain node. The US interest in Venezuela is quietly evolving from purely energy security, oil, to technology security, minerals. While official US sanctions reports focus on gold due to money laundering, intelligence agencies are acutely aware of the silver lining. They know that if Venezuela stabilizes under a pro-China government, Beijing gets first dibs on the exploration contracts for these untapped minerals. So, how is the US fighting this hidden war? It's a game of 4D chess played on 3 levels: economic, diplomatic, and covert. Level 1 is economic strangulation. By sanctioning the Venezuelan Central Bank and PDVSA, the US made it impossible for reputable international mining companies to invest. You can't build $1 billion silver mine if you can't use the international banking system. This effectively freezes the development of these resources. It's a strategy of, if we can't have it right now, nobody can. Level 2 is the shadow fleet cat and mouse. Since Venezuela can't sell oil legally to the US, they sell it illegally. We have seen the rise of a ghost fleet, hundreds of aging tankers that turn off their GPS transponders, paint over their names, and transfer oil in the middle of the ocean to Chinese or Indian ships. The US uses satellites and naval intelligence to track these ships, sanctioned the captains, and seized the cargo. It is a daily game of whack-a-mole on the high seas. Level 3 is the migration pressure. This is where the strategy backfired. The economic warfare destroyed the Venezuelan livelihood, sending 7 million refugees fleeing, many heading straight for the US southern border. This created a massive domestic political crisis for the White House. Suddenly, crushing Venezuela wasn't just hurting Maduro, it was hurting the US president's poll numbers. And this realization forced a major U-turn. Fast forward to today. The narrative has shifted again. After years of maximum pressure, Washington has quietly begun to ease the grip. In a landmark move, the US Treasury issued General License 41, allowing the American oil giant Chevron to resume pumping oil in Venezuela and, crucially, to export that oil to the United States. Why the change of heart? 2 reasons: reality and Russia. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the global energy market panicked. The US needed every barrel of oil it could get to stabilize prices and help its European allies. Suddenly, the dictator in Caracas didn't look so bad compared to the dictator in Moscow. But deeper than that, it is a containment strategy. US strategists realized that total isolation was only pushing Venezuela deeper into becoming a Chinese colony. By letting Chevron back in, the US is reinserting a Western wedge into the country. It is a transaction. We let you sell some oil to pay your debts and stabilize your economy. And in return, you keep the oil flowing to us, not just to Beijing. This also reopens the door for future mineral discussions. If US companies are on the ground for oil, they are also the eyes and ears for other opportunities. It keeps the possibility alive that one day, American/Canadian mining companies, not Chinese state-owned enterprises, could be the ones developing those Andean silver deposits. So, does the US want Venezuela's oil? Yes. The geology of our refineries demands it. Does the US want Venezuela's silver? Perhaps not today, but they certainly want to ensure that China doesn't monopolize it for the technology of tomorrow. But ultimately, the US interest in Venezuela is about something much simpler and much older than oil or silver. It is about primacy. It is about the belief that the Western Hemisphere should not be a forward operating base for global rivals. For the last 20 years, the US took its eye off the ball, and Venezuela drifted away. Now, Washington is trying to reel it back in. It is a messy, morally complex struggle involving sanctions, spies, refugees, and billions of dollars in resources. As we look to the future, the question isn't whether Venezuela has the wealth to be a global superpower. The question is, who will hold the keys to unlock it? What do you think? Is the US right to ease sanctions to regain influence, or should they keep the pressure on, regardless of the cost? And did you know about the silver potential hidden in the Venezuelan mountains? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next one.